I'm off to Alexandra Palace to see the London Festival of Railway Modelling. Why don't you come along? It's been a couple of years since I've been to Alexandra Palace, so I thought I'd return this year. So I got up very early and got to see some freight trains, which was good. Getting up early wasn't so good. And pulled into Marlborough. The boy decided to opt this one out, so I was just on my own today. Should be a nice easy journey, I thought. Just jump on the underground, make my way to Moorgate Station, and then catch a stopping service to Alexandra Palace. Unfortunately, Transport for London decided to close the Circle line, the Hammersmith City line and the Metropolitan line, which all go to Moorgate. So actually, it took me longer to get across London than it did to get into London. However, eventually, I got there. So after much venturing around on trains, I decided to skip the bus and walk up to Alexandra Palace. It's a big hill, I wouldn't recommend it. Wait for the bus. And we start the show with L Gauge. This is the LSUR, which I believe is the Lego Southern United Kingdom Railway Group collection of Lego locomotives. And these just aren't your standard out-of-the-box Legos. These are proper mocks of real engines and are very impressive builds. Even if you are a serious railway modeller, you must appreciate how much hard work is put into Lego. I know because I build a lot of Lego, so I was very impressed with this. The boy was very disappointed to miss out, I must say. Here we see a terrier on a short goods train. It really is impressive modelling, even if it is Lego. The first layout we come to then is Fredstone Lane in Engage. Now at this point I must state that even though there was a show guide which promised to have information in it, there's actually no information on the layout. So I'll try my very best to inform you of what the layout is, who it's by, where I can. Otherwise, I might just talk about the layout or just ramble over it in hope that you won't notice that I actually have no information about the layout, such as what I'm doing here. But I believe it's working so far, you haven't noticed yet. So this layout is clearly modern image, and here we see a Class 170 in cross-country livery heading over the main lines along the branch. This layout is quite a clever little layout, really. It's a loop of main lines that have a diverging route which goes through a tunnel, as you'll see this oil tanker train do here, whilst in front there's main lines for the passenger platforms, and they join up together. Meanwhile, the branch line climbs out of the station, and as you can see, the cross-country unit is departing the top station, heading into another tunnel. Here we see a Virgin HST sitting in the platform, whilst a Class 59 with a rake of ARC PGA wagons uses the freight diverging route and avoids the station. Next is Sheepcroft in EM Gauge. This layout was built over a maximum of 5-foot scenic section because that's the maximum that the owner could fit in the back of his car when the seats are folded down. There's an additional 1-foot fiddle yard, and the layout is mainly for shunting purposes. It's quite a nice little layout, and it's in EM Gauge with hand-built track work. Next is another EM Gauge layout, Hope-Under-Dinmore. I've seen this layout before, and it is a delightful little layout. It's based on the Shrewsbury and Hereford Railway, which the company obtained an Act of Parliament in 1846 to build a narrow gauge railway from Shrewsbury to Hereford. The line covered a distance of 50.5 miles, and work commenced in 1850. The line opened from Shrewsbury to Ludlow on the 21st of April 1852. The Hereford section of the line opened on the 30th of July 1853 for goods traffic and for passengers in December. In 1862, the Shrewsbury and Hereford Railway was jointly leased by the London and North Western Railway. The Great Western Railway and the West Midlands Railway. By 1871, the West Midlands Railway had amalgamated with the Great Western Railway, so the LNWR and GWR jointly acquired the Shrewsbury and Hereford line. In 1887, the traffic levels on the line were increased by the opening of the Severn Tunnel, and in May 1892, the conversion of the broad gauge lines to standard gauge to the west of Exeter meant even longer distance through services on the line. The station was built south of Dinmore Tunnel, which was Dinmore Station, which closed in 1958. The layout is based on a fictitious station that is assumed to be at the north end of the tunnel, close to the village of Hope-Under-Dinmore. The layout has a double-track main line and a single-track branch line. It is set in the pre-grouping era period of 1904 to 1920. Trains are operated to a schedule and are a mixture of LLWR and GWR. Next is East Quay in double O gauge. This layout is set in a small coastal town situated on a river estuary somewhere in the southwest of England. A ferry crosses the estuary departing from the left-hand end of the harbour when the tide allows. A number of small businesses have prospered because of the trade brought in by the ferry. However, East Quay has a short platform with limited passenger facilities, but quite a busy goods yard. In the summer months, the town is filled with holiday makers. For the rest of the year, it's the preserve of local fishermen and the associated traders. The scene you see is the little harbour at half tide, with the water ebbing quickly. The few small craft will soon be resting on the muddy harbour bottom. There are no big locomotives or express trains here, just small engines shunting the yard or arriving with one or two coaches, such as this Great Western auto train. Next is Llawrygln Lane in OO gauge, which is set along the south-west main line. Here you can watch the south-west trains thundering by on the main lines, whilst in the foreground is a depot for the MPVs to be maintained. Here we see a Class 66 in GB Rail Freight's heritage livery of, I believe it's the construction logo of bORRUD, hauling some empty hopper wagons. There's always plenty of action on this layout and lots to see and keep you entertained, as can be seen here by this 12-car train thundering by as one of the MPVs does the show. What I find interesting about Llawrygln Lane is that it's not a deep layout. In fact, it looks to be roughly around 1 foot wide boards. But that doesn't take away from the enjoyment of watching the trains go by, and it builds the scene quite well. If you like the weathering and some of the rolling stock on this layout, then look no further than SBJ at Empress Path. In fact, why don't you go find his channel after you've watched this? Here we see another MPV move, as in the background, another 12-car train goes thundering by along the main line. We now move over to Germany for Neuhassen in HO gauge. This layout was very interesting to watch, in particular the operations side of things, where the operator of the station can communicate with the operator of the river yard by telephone, almost like a real signal box. Quite impressive stuff, and slightly confusing when I heard a phone ringing. Next is bORRUD in 00 gauge. Now I have a suspicion, and I'm not certain, but I believe that the layout that was opposite this on the other side is version 1, and this is a future version of what the layout looks like after the Dr. Beeching cuts, because there was another layout called Nocturne, and this one's called 2K. However, I can't be certain, but when I've done a Google search it seems to point that way. So this layout is indeed based on the line as if it were after the Beeching cuts. It's still quite busy, as you can see here, with some shunting and a regular passenger service. South West trains to pass the station and leaves the scene, passing some rather unusual looking steam locomotives in some very questionable liveries. Unfortunately, I don't have any footage of the other layout because I just couldn't get near it, and I walked past that layout at least 7 times to try and get near it. In fact, there was a few layouts like that. That just seems to be the way at Ali Pally. Sometimes you just can't get near a layout. We move to Great Bardfield. This model portrays rural Essex from the mid-1950s to the early 1960s. Like many stations in the area, the village it claims to serve is a good mile away. Decline and ultimate closure was inevitable once roads were improved enough to support local buses and freight hauliers. The line had a brief resurgence during the war, but the Great Bardfield to Great Llawrygln section was closed to passenger traffic shortly after. Goods traffic continued on this section until closure and also served RAF Wethersfield, which, for a period after the war, was used as a bomb and ammunition dump. Complete closure came in 1962, before even Dr. Beeching could do his worst. This layout has been exhibited well in excess of 100 times since it's made its debut on the exhibition circuit in 1992. Yet it's the first time I've seen it. But that might be because it's limited in how often it comes out now. We move on to Lacy Dale in N gauge, set in 1950s Derbyshire. This layout is a busy and heavily used mainline railway running over a viaduct through the Derbyshire peaks. Down below is a small branch line to a station terminus and a small goods yard. Here we can see trains passing over the viaduct before a light loco runs along the branch line to do some shunting in the yard. This is a very entertaining layout with a steady flow of trains on the main lines to keep the viewer entertained, whilst the shunting loco down below is just that added bit of interest to look for when there isn't anything on the top lines. Sticking to N-gauge, or N-scale as we're going over the pond, is Solent Summit. Solent Summit is an N-scale modular layout and is the main passing place on the layout, consisting of the main line and 3 parallel passing loops. 3 modules are used to build this layout: east, centre and west. Technically, the east and west modules can be used without the centre module. They were built for it, but this does not allow an operational flexibility, as the passing loops are too short to be very useful. The passing loop head shunt at the west end of Solent Summit extends to the module edge to allow connection to a double track module and thus increasing the passing potential. A bumper, or buffers as we know in English, is fixed in place to terminate the head shunt if the adjacent module is not double track. The other option being considered is to create another optional module that would fit between Solent Summit West and Solent Summit Centre, extending all the loops by 4 feet with space permitted. This would raise the passing load from 9 foot to 13 foot to provide an increase in the operational flexibility and match the length of certain trains. The passing loops on the Helix seem to be very busy, as this passenger train awaits the arrival of this freight. The freight itself is coming in nice and slowly because it's going to stop on the passing loops and allow a freight coming from the other direction to pass around the Helix first. And now we come to Frecclesham in O-Gauge, and I'm going to upset a colleague from work because he really despises bullied locomotives, but that loco is absolutely stunning, and I was very tempted to convert to O-Gauge there and then just so I could have a model just like that. However, I resisted and continued filming and enjoyed the delights of this wonderful layout. Presented by the Newport Model Railway Society, the layout is based on BR7 region practice and loosely inspired by a prototype location. It appeared in September 2014 edition of Railway Modeller. Whilst the rebuilt Battle of Britain shunts its coaches and gets ready to run round, in the other platform, the N-Class departs with a mixed goods train. And now we move to northwest Scotland, somewhere around the Scottish coast. It's Roshven in O-Gauge. This delightful little layout seems to have a very interesting block token system for the operators to use, as can be slightly heard and demonstrated by the operator in front here. With the Class 156s arrived at the platform, the steam special can now depart back in the other direction, passing through the town and a small lock before disappearing off scene.
Yeah. My parents, dead now. We lived there, for years and years too.
If you saw my last exhibition video, then you know that we've already visited Abingdon, whilst in Abingdon, but Abingdon has appeared again, this time in Alexandra Palace. With a little bit more movement on the layout than last time, we see a warship running around its coaches before a pannier tank does some shunting in the yard. There also seems to be a hive of activity going on in the goods yard itself. If you pay close attention and you're lucky enough, you might just spot the crane working in the middle of the yard. I never actually did, I just kept spotting the goods hanging off the hook wobbling every so often. Every time I looked, the crane seemed to have stopped, but it had changed position. And here we see a pannier tank shunting some empty mineral wagons in the yard.
It's not even coming up with root process, and it's just doing whatever it seems to want to do. About the past half hour or so, I've just learned to deal with it.
We stay in Oxfordshire, but move over to West Oxfordshire and Carterton. This O-Gauge layout presents the branch line station on the Fairford branch. I don't think the real live branch line was ever as busy as this, as we see a 14XX in one platform and a pannier pull into the other with a set of B coaches. Soon after, the 14XX will depart and will be quickly followed by a freight. I don't think the Fairford branch can even handle that many trains. The line ran from Oxford to Fairford, and the Fairford section was closed in around 1962. The section between Oxford to Witney lasted up until around 1970 for goods traffic only. Next is Newchappel Junction in low gauge. This is quite a big setup. Essentially, it's an end-to-end layout with a circular track in the middle. Here we can see a freight running around the inner loop and a passenger on the outer loop, whilst the operators run some trains in the platforms itself. I've seen this layout several times, but it's always entertaining, and it goes to show that you don't need masses of scenery for things to be interesting.
Okay, do you want to see something else? Okay, let's go see that.
Next is West End Drift in the M gauge, and if you pay close attention to those wagons being shunted, you'll see that they are actually being loaded. This delightful little layout features a railway modeller and represents a colliery sidings where wagons are shunted and loaded. All the locos are in fabulous and most gorgeous Oxford blue National Coal Board livery. Here we can see one of the locos moving towards the engine shed.
Yes, since they brought this track out, the number of members of the society has gone from about 1,500 to more like 2,000. So it's been really good for them.
And as the saddle tank moves towards the shed, the small 040 Andrew Barclay tank locomotive shunts its wagons from one of the hopper loaders to one of the sidings. In 7mm gauge, we have the yard, which is the most interesting layout because the majority of the items on it are operated by radio control. There's a working gantry crane, you can see a lorry reversing there, and the various N gauge and standard gauge locos that move from between the sidings. Again, it was an impressive piece of modelling and very entertaining to the crowds. So entertaining, in fact, I couldn't actually get near it very well. And this is filmed from 2 people back, and that was the best I could do. I would have loved to go a little bit closer, but at least you get to see that wonderful gantry crane loading those wagons. Here we are at Wantage Tramway in P4. This station is based on the real life location of Wantage Tramway Station, which was a small line which ran from the Great Western Main Line into Wantage itself. The line ran from Wantage Road, as the Great Western Main Line was built a small distance from the actual town of Wantage itself. The line no longer exists and has been gone for many years. However, this is an absolutely delightful representation of what Wantage used to look like. And from Wantage we move to Wales, and another test of my linguistic skills. This is Llawrygln, a Cambrian railway line. The village lies approximately 5 miles from the Cambrian main line, and this layout is imagined that there is an additional mine somewhere near the village, and that the branch has been built off the Cambrian main line. There's a goods yard and station with an additional further 3/4 mile run towards the mine for freight traffic. Here we can see a loco preparing to run round its train and get ready for its return journey.
Yeah.
And now we're at Top Yard in EM Gauge. The basic premise of this layout is that wagons are tripped in from the BR network from under the right-hand road bridge and out to the industry under the left-hand bridge, with an industrial loco as seen here. What happens in between? Entirely the lap of the gods.
It's sounding alright, a bit tight, isn't it?
So that's a niche, but even that has improved over where it is.
And now we move to Harton Gill in P4. The layout is set in the 1960s and represents British Railways' north-eastern region and the national coalboard lines in that period. Although everything on the layout should be prototypical for the Southern Tyneside area in the chosen time period, nonetheless, Harton Gill is a fictional location. The timescale allows the run of a mixture of steam and early diesels, both green and blue, as well as the dedicated colliery electrics. The latest additions here are Tyneside Bobo Electric operated off the Fern Rail and the EPB parcels car, which ran on Tyneside for a while. And now we come to our final layout of the show, LLandelwyn Railway in 009 gauge. Unfortunately, I couldn't film all the layouts of the show, but I tried to get as many as I could. I hope you have enjoyed this video, and if you've liked it, please click the like button. If you want to comment, then please do make a comment. Except about my Welsh pronunciation, there's no need for that, unless you actually want to tell me how to pronounce those words. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, then please hit the subscribe button. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you again next time. You're still here? Quick, why don't you find your remote and watch another? Or go find SBJ at Empress Path.